welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for September the 23rd of 2019. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you the hottest gaming news that you need to know to keep you up to date and informed throughout the work week, right here on youtube.com/Samuel Adams Media, as well as on podcast services around the world. So if you do enjoy the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the podcast feed, and stay up to date and informed. But what are we going to be talking about today? We've got a tease for a brand new Batman Arkham game from the creators of Batman Arkham Origins. It could be a pretty awesome game, if I do say so myself. The Court of Owls heavily involved. Then, of course, Control on PC, an Epic Game Store exclusive, but how much did they pay to make that happen? A lot of money. In fact, more money than I'll make in the foreseeable future, and I mean that literally. Then Obsidian is hiring for their brand new next world-class RPG. Microsoft wants you to join its Alpha Skip Ahead Xbox program. Sony, Microsoft, Stadia, and others join forces with the UN to talk about climate change. There is a rumor going around about Modern Warfare. We'll talk more about what maps could be coming to the game. And finally, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is making some pretty big waves in the gaming community, but a 3D print of Koholint Island has resurfaced, and man, does it look pretty cool. I thought I would show you guys on today's show. But that's pretty much the lineup for today's podcast, and without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top gaming news. First off, Batman Arkham Origins developer Warner Brothers Games Montreal has dropped another hint they're making another Batman game. It's World Batman Day, they wrote on Saturday, so put on your cowl, emotionally distance yourself from your loved ones, and get prepared to pore over this Twitter tease for a new Batman. To celebrate World Batman Day, the official Twitter account for WB Games Montreal posted a short little video of the bat symbol up against a wall. Why a video instead of a static image? Give it a watch and see for yourself. Well, let's give it a watch and see for ourselves, shall we? Basically, it's the bat signal up on the side of a building, but there is a small little flash right there, and it looks like that is, in fact, a icon of some kind. As you'll see, 4 images flash briefly on the screen, which in marketing terms is what we would call a tease. Is WB Games Montreal working on a new Batman game? Probably, right? They were hiring up for a new superhero games all the way back in 2015 after all. Twitter user WallSpider, who mostly posts about Marvel Spider-Man, has done us a kindness by pulling out the 4 images that flash briefly on the screen. As many have pointed out, there is a definite hint of the Court of Owls to that second one. And so there you have the 4 images as found by the ever-so-friendly WallSpider on Twitter. Pretty much what you would expect from a tease of this kind, and I will say, pretty interesting stuff. Jeff Eleanor, game director at Warner Brothers Games Montreal, made his own cryptic tweet with the same image, albeit without the video. Hopefully we will have more details soon, but in the meantime, you can get the Batman Arkham Trilogy, which does not feature Origins, sadly, for free on the Epic Game Store right now, as well as the Lego Batman games. And Batman is also in Fortnite right now if you did want to get in on the BR action. However, it looks like there is a brand new Batman Arkham game coming down the pipe. Could it be a successor, a sequel, if you will, to Batman Arkham Origins? It looks to be that way. Of course, nothing definitive right now. We are still in that teasing phase, but without a doubt, Batman Arkham Origins is an underrated one whenever it comes to the Arkham games. Of course, everybody talks about Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight, but Origins kind of slipped through the cracks for a lot of people because of its strange release. However, make no mistake, still worth checking out if you did want to dive into it. And of course, if you don't want to dive into that one directly, again, the other 3 are free on the Epic Game Store right now if you did want to get in on that. And I believe for September of 2019 on the PlayStation Store, you can get Batman Arkham Knight for free if you are a PlayStation Plus subscriber. A lot of Batman going on right now. And don't get me wrong, not complaining whatsoever. But I would love to see another Batman game. When it comes to superhero games, the Batman Arkham series first did it well. And I want to make myself clear in saying that there are other good superhero games, but when people think about the best superhero games, the Batman Arkham series is the first one that comes to mind, followed closely by Spider-Man, which took a lot of notes from the Arkham series. But would love to see a sequel to Arkham Origins, or even something entirely new set in the Batman universe. We live in a society Did you get the reference? Where essentially new stories can be told within a universe, and it's more acceptable now than it was previously because more people are getting into comics, more people are getting into the lore, and you don't necessarily always have to have the Joker or Scarecrow, something along those lines. You can do new stuff, and that's exactly what I would love to see. But again, we will see what comes in the next few weeks as more hints will be dropped. Hopefully, we could be getting some kind of next-gen release, if I did have to guess, of a brand new sequel, successor, a new entry from the creators of Batman Arkham Origins. However, they paid a lot of money for Control over at Epic Games because Control's Epic Game Store exclusivity initially cost Epic $10.45 million. Digital Bros, the parent company of Control publisher 505 Games, listed about $10.45 million in revenue for Control ahead of the game's release. A payment spotted by Nyko partners Daniel Ahmad, and one it says relates to the game's exclusivity agreement with a certain digital marketplace known for chasing exclusivity deals. Control, developed by Remedy Games, launched on late August for consoles and on PC exclusively for the Epic Games Store. While some devs on the Epic Games Store have been more open than others about the terms of whatever exclusivity arrangements they have made with Epic, most have been fairly quiet about the specifics to their deals. For Control, neither Remedy nor 505 Games has been particularly forthcoming about the arrangement behind the Epic Games Store launch, so the revenue mentioned in the Digital Bros report represents an insightful, albeit somewhat contextless look at the inner workings of that arrangement. The document notes that Control brought in €9.49 million in revenue before June 30th, and later on notes in platform-by-platform breakdown that Epic Games was likewise responsible for €9.49 million in revenue during that same time period. Remedy itself has previously said in a quote captured by PC Games Insider that the development budget for Control fell between €20 million and €30 million, so at face value, the payment from Epic represents a significant chunk of the game's total budget. It is worth noting that the actual terms of the agreement between Epic and Digital Bros aren't laid out in the document, only that the funds were sourced from Epic's exclusivity agreement. That unfortunate vagueness makes it difficult to know the specifics on exactly how Epic plans to recoup that investment or how that upfront payment will impact future earnings on 505 and Remedy's side from sales of Control on the Epic Games Store. And so, again, this is not the full picture, but it does give us a glimpse. It's almost like you're looking into somebody's window from the outside, and they don't know. That's basically what this actually is. There are a lot of terms of this agreement that are yet to be seen, that will never be seen by the general public. But to see that number being thrown around, $10.45 million, roughly, being used to purchase Control for the Epic Games Store, that is a significant amount of money. And again, I don't know how Epic plans to recoup that money, but without a doubt, if you do want to play Control, you've got to play on the Epic Games Store. And I think that is the overall goal, and that's been the goal from day one, to get people to dump Steam and come over to the Epic Games Store, whether they want to or not. Now, I've been having conversations on Twitter a lot lately about the Epic Games Store, and I will say that a lot of people are up in arms about the Epic Games Store. Again, I don't see anything wrong with bringing competition into the space, and this is where somebody starts typing a comment about how it's not actually competition when you establish your own monopoly, or something along those lines. But regardless, that point aside, you do have Epic Games Store making big moves to get games that might not actually pay off in the long run. Again, it is worth noting that during the August NPD report, Control didn't even chart. You had games like Astral Chain actually making the chart, released later than Control in the month, and so I just don't know how this one is going to work out. But the big issue with the gaming industry and any kind of entertainment industry is that no matter how much money you pour into a project, sometimes you just go in the hole, and that might be what you see here with Control. But regardless, now we know a figure of how much Epic is paying for pretty big games. Again, Control, one of the biggest games of 2019, bought for $10.45 million exclusively on the Epic Games Store. To be clear, the exclusivity was bought, not the game. But Obsidian is hiring for their next world-class RPG. The developers of Knights of the Old Republic 2 and New Vegas are gearing up for something big. Last week's listings were posted on LinkedIn for 11 new jobs at Obsidian Entertainment, the developers of RPGs like Pillars of Eternity and Fallout New Vegas. The job listings range from lead narrative designer to user interface artist. Several of them mention understanding of Unreal Engine 4 would be a plus, as well as referencing first-person melee combat gameplay, combat with an emphasis on exceptional first-person melee experience, and combat actions utilizing both first and third-person animations. There's also mention of branching dialogue, conversations and cutscenes, and day-night cycles. They paint a picture of a game that's more like The Outer Worlds than Pillars of Eternity or South Park, although obviously job listing details are a long way from a finished games feature list. The network programmer position mentions that Obsidian is looking for experienced programmers to develop network and multiplayer gameplay systems using Unreal Engine. Online multiplayer support wouldn't be new territory for a game from a studio behind Neverwinter Nights 2, but it's certainly not what they are famous for. Other listings call the game they are hiring for our next great multi-platform RPG, and given this would be their first project begun after Microsoft's acquisition of Obsidian, both PC and Xbox are a given. Of course, The Outer Worlds is due out on October the 25th and will be on the Epic Games Store and Xbox Game Pass if you did want to dive into their next big game, which I will, without a doubt, be getting in on because that thing looks phenomenal. But of course, Obsidian, fantastic development studio, love what they do, and I would love to see that same kind of take on New Vegas, which is what we are getting through The Outer Worlds, but what else could they actually come up with? Again, with the online elements being incorporated into the job listings, with what sounds to be a pretty fan-centric, a fan-focused take on an RPG. You could be seeing a pretty big hit with this one. It's been weird to see how the gaming community has reacted over the past, I would say, 5 years to where RPGs have gone, specifically those that Bethesda have been putting out. Because whenever you look at Fallout 3 versus Fallout 4, the dialogue options very much so reeled back in. Fallout 4 is a simplified Fallout, if you will, and I think people didn't necessarily want that. Of course, it was more welcoming for newcomers, but for those that were wanting the classic RPG experience where you can develop the story in the way that you see fit, that wasn't necessarily what you got from Fallout 4 in the complete and total package. Of course, not on the same level as New Vegas or, as I said, Fallout 3. But with Obsidian, they are really going to be using that marketing take, I guess, that tactic in The Outer Worlds, so hopefully they will continue that going forward, and without a doubt, number one, The Outer Worlds going to sell like hotcakes. I think it's going to be a fantastic success for the fall 2019 season. But on top of that, with the Microsoft funding behind them, now that they are officially owned by Microsoft, you are going to be seeing a lot more potential because more money equals more potential. You might not like it, but that's the way it is. I know because I lived that life. But overall, I would love to see what Obsidian is working on right now, and you could too if you get hired on at the team through that LinkedIn job posting. However, you know what else you could get hired on to do? Microsoft's Alpha Skip Ahead Xbox preview ring, but guess what? You won't get paid for it, but they still want you to join it anyway. Microsoft is looking for more volunteers to join its testing ring, at least the early testing ring, for Alpha Skip Ahead on the Xbox One. We are looking for Xbox insiders interested in joining our Alpha Skip Ahead ring, Microsoft said in a post, thanks to Engadget. The Alpha Skip Ahead ring currently has the latest 2004 OS build, 2004.190918-1920 for the nerds out there, which is one of the next major releases expected to come to Xbox One. Typically, the ring's builds may not come to GA, general availability, for quite some time, and they can contain different features from other preview rings. This ring serves as a building block for changes for Xbox One that have a larger impact on the functionality and stability of the system overall. Also sharing their request on its subreddit, Microsoft explained the criteria to join the network used to be closely guarded criteria for enrollment selection, but is now asking for volunteers. Interested? You better hurry then. Applications will close at midnight Pacific time, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning here in the UK tonight. To apply, hold the power button down until the power menu appears, then select report a problem and then add a new problem. Then locate the new subcategory title named Future Build. We have made the location of Future Build a bit of a scavenger hunt. It's there, promise, and select the tile and let Microsoft know why you are interested in being in the Alpha Skip Ahead program. Remember, we read every piece of feedback. Please be kind. Microsoft adds. Successful candidates should hear back within the next week, formally inviting them to join up. Now, I will say I've been reading up on the Alpha Skip Ahead program because I had not actually heard of this until this article came out. And if you are not somebody that wants to test very beta features, I would not recommend joining up on the program because, quite frankly, it can brick your Xbox. It could allow you to not open games. Your dashboard could crash, and it could be a really bad time. At least with the Xbox Insider program, you get a preview of the beta build and not the alpha build. But for those that do want to get in on the early testing, for those that want to kind of weasel their way in to the gaming industry and give something a shot, maybe become a game tester at some point, this is a pretty good segue into at least knowing what to expect from testing hardware, software, and user interfaces, as well as new operating systems, etc., etc. But they are opening it up to you, so again, if you do want to dive in, the instructions are within that Eurogamer article, or you can always just give it a quick Google yourself and get on that new preview program. However, Sony, Microsoft, Stadia, and others, pause, I think I would say Google here, according to Games Radar Plus, but they say Stadia, and others join forces with United Nations to announce new climate change commitments, including a more eco-friendly PS5. That last part is where you should start paying attention. Today, the UN has announced it's partnering with 21 companies in the video game industry to harness the power of their platforms to take action in response to the climate crisis as part of its new Playing for the Planet initiative. The likes of Sony, Microsoft, Google Stadia, Ubisoft, and more have all pledged to the program, announcing various initiatives to reduce their own corporate carbon footprint while simultaneously promoting awareness about the climate crisis through their medium. Sony's president and CEO Jim Ryan, for example, has announced that the upcoming PS5, the next-gen PS console, will feature a low-power suspend mode, which could potentially save huge amounts of energy expenditure for its users around the world. Microsoft is continuing to reach its aims of producing carbon-neutral Xbox consoles and plans to reduce its supply chain emissions by 20% in 2030, while Google Stadia is releasing a sustainable game development guide to help its partnered studios create games through greener processes. This is not the first series of announcements from the UN's Playing for the Planet initiative either. Last week, Football Manager 2020 developer Sports Interactive announced that its new game of 2019 will be wrapped in recyclable packaging. You can eat it, actually. While Minecraft's Build a Better World has been running for years, teaching its users on what a future greener Earth might look like. Playing for the Planet is part of the UN's overall efforts to achieve its sustainable development goals this century, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. At present, most climate scientists agree that the world has already passed the point of no return, and we are now on track to reach 4 degrees of warming, or higher by 2100. Oh boy, existential dread. However, here we have what appears to be a pretty good initiative from the gaming industry to at least try and make some greener moves in the long term. Now, the big question is, will any of this actually matter? It very well could, because I've always been of the mindset that no matter what size of an impact somebody makes, it's still an impact that wouldn't exist if the person hadn't made it. For instance, whenever I'm out running and I see a bottle of something laying on the side of the road or some kind of trash bag blowing in the wind, I will go pick it up and throw it away, because you think about, it won't matter if I do it or not, but then that trash bag could have gone and gotten hung on a penguin or something in the Antarctic, and then there you are. You're a penguin murderer now. So Sony, Microsoft, Google, and others don't want to be penguin murderers, so therefore they are actually going to be making some pretty big moves to try and make a greener impact on the world. However, specifically, this suspend mode on the PS5 has been in the talks a lot lately. In fact, it's going to be consuming, that was the correct word, less energy as compared to the current resting mode that the PS4 has right now. And of course, many people's PlayStation 4s are in resting mode more than they are in playing mode, so that would definitely make sense to be able to make a more eco-friendly sleep setting for the PlayStation 5. But we will see if this does in fact come to fruition. I would love to see these new changes implemented because, hey, we can all be a little bit better to Mother Earth without a doubt. But Modern Warfare is coming out on the PS4. You shouldn't have your PS4 in rest mode for that because, man, it looks good. And guess what? You could be getting some fan-favorite maps back from the dead, or at least back from the DLC from previous Call of Duty re-releases. But oh boy, this is a rumor that has us a little bit excited, they say at Push Square. Taking us back to our teenage years growing up in secondary school where we played for hours upon hours, it looks like Modern Warfare will be bringing back a number of classic multiplayer maps from previous iterations of the franchise. As data mined and spotted by VG sources, the likes of Shipment from COD 4 Modern Warfare and Rust, Subbase, and Terminal from Modern Warfare 2 could all be returning with this year's game. Obviously, they will be completely remade along with better visuals, but we are incredibly hyped by just the thought of returning to some of those locations next month. There will apparently, oh my god, be a whopping 38 other maps, not including night versions, when the game ships, and that's the only detail that gives us pause on this rumor, unfortunately, because it is such a ludicrous number. The most amount of maps a Call of Duty game has ever released by a country mile. Do you believe this rumor? Are you as excited as we are to potentially return to these classic maps? 1v1 is in the comments below, they say at Push Square. 38 maps is a lot. I don't know that's actually going to be legitimate. I haven't seen reports of how many maps are going to be in the game, but I mean, generally, that's more than you'll be getting from the entire DLC lineup combined. I don't know if that one's going to be legitimate, but judging by years past, you are going to be seeing fan favorite maps brought back from the dead, especially considering this is somewhat of a return to form for Call of Duty. But make no mistake, I've been playing a ton of the new beta that was launched over the weekend, and the first thing you notice is that it plays like a Call of Duty, but at the same time, it does have a bit of a Battlefield Rainbow Six Siege combination vibe going on as well, which brings a much more tactical approach that many might not necessarily take. So to be able to mantle the corner and look down the, hallway on Terminal is something that I would love to be able to do. To be able to approach these maps with a more tactical approach sounds very, very exciting. And of course, who doesn't like to 1v1 people on Rust? I mean, come on now. Don't even lie. But without a doubt, I'm very excited about Modern Warfare, diving in on day one. I've already got it pre-ordered. I'm preloading ASAP. It's just the bee's knees. I'm very, very happy with where the game is right now after playing the beta. Ground War needs some work. That game was a little bit unbalanced, but still cool to see the giant warfare thing. Anyways, this isn't a podcast about Call of Duty. If you were curious as to whether or not Modern Warfare would be getting the fan-favorite maps, it looks like they very well could, according to VG sources. But you could also be playing Link's Awakening over the weekend, and guess what? The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening fan recreates 3D print of Koholint Island. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening arrived on the Switch just a few days ago on Friday, September the 20th. I think it's safe to say that fans of the franchise and newcomers spent their entire weekend lost inside the beautiful, nostalgic world of Koholint Island. With the game's launch still as fresh as a wild fish's dream, this is the perfect time to showcase some of the amazingly talented artists that surround not only the gaming world, but also the artistic world. And there is nothing more special than when both of those worlds collide. They go on to talk more about this, but essentially, here you have it. This is a 3D print of Koholint Island. Isn't it cool? Just look at that. I love stuff like this, and the gaming community does blow me away because they make t-shirts, they make graphics, they make fan art, they make everything. They make modifications to games even. But to see this, a 3D printed model of Koholint Island, really did catch the eye, and I wanted to share it with you guys. But without a doubt, I love to see this kind of stuff online, and you can always check out the full video on YouTube if you did want to see a time lapse of it actually happening. And again, that is going to be over at youtube.com/Kijai Design. If you did want to say that, it's Kijai Design, if you did want to dive in and give that one a look. But man, that's just the stuff that I love. To see the gaming community embrace the game that they love in a way that might not necessarily be seen on the day-to-day. Gorgeous stuff. Love the terrain. Love the time-lapse. Can't get enough of it. But with that being said, that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. Of course, if you are brand new here and you did enjoy today's show, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you on tomorrow's episode. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and peace.